Okay, junior topics are fine.
Yeah, who's hosting?
You are, man.
Did you say that in the message? I didn't see that. Oh shit, okay. Then I have to get my shit together. One sec, let me go get a glass of water or something. This is a lot of pressure now. Welcome to episode 48 of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host this week, Ashwin, after being kicked off the show for one episode where they had a much more interesting guest than me, Taz, come on. I'm back this week, hosting from Cincinnati in the US. I'm joined by my co-podcasters, DJ in London and Varun in Singapore, as always. So thanks for joining me, guys. Lots to cover this week, despite it being a kind of hiatus in the world of Indian cricket where India didn't play a match. And I can't remember the last time we went more than a week without playing a match. But we're about 48 hours away from the India-Australia T20s kicking off. There's been a lot going on, obviously, in the world of politics as well with the India-Pakistan situation. So we're going to talk a little about that. Two other really interesting series going on. England is touring West Indies and Sri Lanka is touring South Africa. And then some really interesting news from the world of domestic cricket in the lead up to the IPL. And finally, the England women's series going on against India where they played their first game at Mumbai. So let us jump right in. DJ, I'm going to come with you first. Let's talk the big topic that's been all over the news this week, the India-Pakistan situation. So do you want to summarize it a little bit, obviously, after the attack that happened, what's going on with the BCCI and the ICC?
Yeah, so obviously there was the attack in the last week and a Pakistani terrorist organization claimed responsibility for that. 40 Indian soldiers lost their lives. It's a really sad and unfortunate situation, and our thoughts are with the families of those affected by the attack. Since then, there have been protests all over India, and emotions are running pretty high at the moment, I'd say. On the cricketing front, however, CricBuzz has removed the PSL scores, Dream 11 has removed all the PSL games, pictures of Pakistani cricketers have been removed from Indian grounds. India has also denied visas to two Pakistani shooters who were to be in India for the Shooting World Cup. That's created issues for India hosting future IOC events, but that's a different topic altogether. Now, India and Pakistan, it's primarily a political issue. On the one hand, you can argue that cricket has nothing to do with politics, but on the other hand, should India really be engaging in what is effectively a cultural activity, being a sporting activity, with a state that allegedly does nothing about terrorist activity being carried out from its territory? We already don't play bilateral cricket against Pakistan since the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. That was in 2008. We've met them in multilateral tournaments since then, the World Cup, the Asia Cup and the Champions Trophy. And all the talk about the multilateral tournaments brings us to the 2019 World Cup meeting between the two sides, which is scheduled for the 16th of June this year. Earlier this week on Tuesday, Steve Elworthy, who's the tournament director, said they'd got 400,000 applications for 25,000 seats in Old Trafford for India versus Pakistan. Now, Old Trafford, incidentally, is also the place where India played Pakistan in 1999 during what was the height of the Kargil conflict, right? So that's one of the coincidences I just wanted to point out. So the 400,000 applications they got for India versus Pakistan, the final at Lord's has got almost half of that. They've only got 250. Now, the question that's arisen is whether India should play Pakistan in that game or not, to play them in the World Cup at all. Opinions quite heavily divided amongst former cricketers as well. Gavaskar and Sachin seem to be saying that India should play Pakistan and beat them. Dada and Bhaji on the other side of the debate saying, no, boycott Pakistan and we're strong enough to win without them. Just today, actually, today being Friday, where we're recording this podcast, the BCCI, who was earlier apparently considering the ICC to kick Pakistan out of the World Cup, has toned it down a little bit and written to the ICC asking them to sever ties with, in quotes, countries from which terrorism emanates, obviously pointing the finger to Pakistan, right? Now, when they were asked about whether the India-Pakistan game would go ahead, there was no clear answer provided by the BCCI, and they said that any decision would be taken in consultation with the government. Now, my personal view is that I think if we played them in 1999, when the same government was in power in India, I can't see it being different this time. I may be wrong. I don't know. Not least, actually, because of financial and legal reasons. This game is the most commercially viable game of the World Cup. It's literally bigger than the final. And without India versus Pakistan, where people make sure that tournaments are scheduled to make sure that they play each other at least once, I will go as far as saying that this will be a failed World Cup without India playing Pakistan at least once. I think it will be a tense match, but I think the match will be played and it will go ahead. This time, the fan wars will be completely off the charts. and I don't even know what the pressure on the players is going to be. So that's my two bits on India Pakistan. It's not a great situation, and we'll have to see how it develops over the next few weeks.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. Tough situation all around, obviously. Very, very disappointing to see these events happen. Hopefully, we can get to a point where there's less of this happening, and obviously the sport can keep independent and move on. So thanks for that great summary. We'll see how this maps out, and we're going to stay close to it over the next few weeks.
And actually, I just wanted to also add, I mean, I know it's a sensitive topic, but I guess the question is, even if you do kind of go ahead and not play them in the first match, what happens if you meet them in the semis or the finals, right? So I'm pretty sure these are things that have to be thought about. This is the old World Cup format. It's not as simple as, just if they were in different groups, etc. There is a chance you could have two games in the World Cup as well.
Yeah, I think the latest I saw from the BCCI is they were actually proposing changing the format and changing two groups essentially, where you wouldn't have to play until you get to knockouts. But I think DJ's point is valid. It's early. There's a lot of moving pieces. We'll have to see how this shakes out. And even as recently as today, I heard they were saying June 16th is a long time away. We're going to take a decision closer to when we have to. So let's see how that shakes out. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, which is we're 48 hours away at the time we're recording this from the India-Australia T20 series. You guys talked a little bit about the squads last week, but what's changed since then is, unfortunately, Hardik Pandya has got an injury due to lower back stiffness, I think it was. So, Varun, do you want to walk us through that and the impact of the squad? I think Pandya's out, Jadeja's in. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I think I'm just confused as to what Pandya could have done to have injured his back. I know the Twitter family has gone crazy joking about that. But yeah, I think the scary thing for me is Pandya is somebody who walks into the playing 11, and the last time he had a back injury, he was out for a long time. I mean, Asia Cup, I think in September, all the way till the Australia series. So if Pandya is out for that long, it's going to be a big problem for India. Having said that, Jadeja, I think, has been named as his replacement. This was an odd one to me, not because Jadeja was named as replacement, it's because I genuinely thought Vijay Shankar was always going to be the replacement for Hardik Pandya, but he seems to have kind of made his way into the squad, which is great news. When it comes to T20s and previewing the first game, honestly, I think T20 is a format where when you've got your Finch and your Maxwell and your Stoinis, I wouldn't put Australia out of it. If you ask my opinion, I think the ODIs are something where India is going to dominate. T20s, I can't say for sure. But yes, I am looking forward to kind of the Indian lineup. I'm looking forward to seeing, what role Rishabh Pant plays, how Vijay Shankar adapts to different batting positions. We've got Kohli and Bumrah back after a long time. So you're almost kind of back at full strength. So I think it'll be a very good contest.
So, Varun, let me ask you a quick follow-up before I go to DJ. Do you think it was the right call to bring Kohli and Bumrah back for T20s when we left them out, obviously, to protect them for ODIs and work towards the World Cup? Why did we bring them back now for the Australia T20s?
I think, to me personally, I think it's fine. I think I do trust in the fitness coach and the board to be able to assess when a player has got enough rest and when they need match practice. So I personally am okay with the decision because I think somebody like Bumrah, for example, has gotten his rest. So personally, I'm okay with that.
DJ, let me ask you about one of the things we were talking this week during discussion off the podcast, and that was the inclusion of our man Mayank Markande into the India squad. And I know Varun in particular was upset, not because he doesn't think Markande is deserving, but getting closer and closer to fantasy season, this means Markande, if he gets his cap, will no longer be eligible for that free uncapped sub we are so used to getting. So do you think that was the right inclusion?
It was definitely not, but anyway.
From a fantasy perspective, maybe not. But I think it's interesting we're giving him a shot. He bowled that ball, I think, to Kohli last year, which completely bamboozled him, right? So I think he got Dhoni out as well in the first game of the IPL last year. It's always good impressing your bosses, and he's done that well. So, I mean, maybe give him a shot. I don't see him yet being a long-term replacement for Kuldeep or Chahal, but a good shout. I just wanted to actually add one thing to Varun's thoughts on what Hardik Pandya has done to his back. Earlier in the week, I was on Instagram, right? And I follow Hardik Pandya on Instagram because that's where everything's at with Hardik Pandya, of course. And he put up a video of him on Insta stories doing deadlifts. I've got a really bad feeling that he's done his lower back doing a photo shoot and doing a video for Instagram. I mean, it was some pretty impressive lifting, man, to tell you the truth. There was some nice deadlifts there, but I think he's hurt himself because of Insta, and social media has ruled out our number one all-rounder for the Australia series.
Yeah, maybe he had to adjust the camera mid deadlift and that didn't work so well for him. Okay, DJ, let me ask you one final question about the Australia squad. So Finch is skipper. Pat Cummins has been named vice captain. I think there's two, right? There's Pat Cummins and Alex Carey. How are you feeling about this Australia squad in general? They didn't have a great tour against India, but we talked a few weeks ago on the show that Ponting's saying they're still contenders for the World Cup. I mean, Finch ended up played for the Melbourne Renegades, but he in the BBL scored a couple scores above 30. He had 150, and then before that he had a horrific series against India. Is this kind of a do or die series for him, especially as skipper?
So let's start with Finch, right? In the final of the BBL, I think he smashed a chair because he'd had such a bad summer and he got reprimanded for it. I think he was run out while backing up too far. Basically, the ball got hit back at the bowler and he got run out at the non-striker's end. Finch is always a dangerous player, and if he can find form on those flat Indian tracks, he will be dangerous. Cummins, I think, is the top bowler in the world right now in Test cricket. I don't know how he's got past Jasprit Bumrah to do that. I think he's picked up some junk wickets against Sri Lanka and kind of just bossed them around and moved ahead. And the other thing I just wanted to address was this Ponting chat about Australia being contenders for the World Cup. And to my mind, Australia have zero chance of winning this World Cup. Literally zero chance of winning this World Cup, because the last time they came to England just thrashed them. They thrashed them 5-0, right? And I mean, even with David Warner and Steve Smith being reintegrated and them being defending champions and all of this other stuff, and Hayden coming out and saying, oh, we're babysitting the World Cup, ha ha ha, and all of that stuff, I don't see Australia being a genuine contender at all. I don't see them making the semi-finals. I think this World Cup is a write-off for them, and maybe I'm going to be wrong, and maybe you guys are going to quote me back a few months down the line, but I see them having no chance of making it to the knockouts even.
The joy of having everything you say on the record now, right? So we'll come back and pull that clip if Australia wins the World Cup, but I certainly hope we don't have to do that. Okay, let's move on to some other things happening in the world of cricket before we take a break. Varun, let me ask you quickly about the South Africa-Sri Lanka series. So we talked at length about Sri Lanka's first win and that maybe one of the best few test innings ever by Kusal Perera that got them to victory. We are now recording this at the end of day 2 in the second test match, and Sri Lanka's kind of on the verge of maybe being the first Asian side to have a chance to win a series in South Africa. So do you want to just talk us through that really quick?
First thing I'd say is I think they're going to regret just organizing a 2 test match series. Where the game stands today is it's day 2. South Africa has made 222 in the first innings. I think de Kock kind of stood up strong with a great 86, and after a pretty poor last few months for him. So good to see him back in form.
How long did you wait to use that, Varun?
Quite a while. I was thinking, should I say de Kock has risen or de Kock stood up
He
strong?
stood up to the
occasion.
Stood up to the challenge.
Yeah, so they made 222. Sri Lanka then got all out for 154. Pretty disappointing given their last innings, kind of 300 plus total in the previous game. And today morning, I think everyone was kind of talking about how Sri Lanka has just squandered away their chance. This was their big chance to kind of put South Africa under pressure. And it just so has it that South Africa had a collapse towards the end where I think the last 6 to 7 batsmen all making single digits. They've now got 128 all out. Faf top scored with 50 and he was not out. But target for Sri Lanka now is 197 runs. They have ended at 60 for 2. Of course, you've got Pereira to come. But I personally think this is doable because it's only day 3. And it's pretty rare to see a fourth innings chase of under 200 on day 3. So my personal belief is that Sri Lanka is going to do it. They're probably going to have to bring out all their mental strength to get through this. But it's not that big a total. And they've already chased 1/3 of it. So for any listeners out there who hear this before tomorrow, I would definitely be watching the first few hours of this game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I'm excited personally as a fan of the sport to see Sri Lanka kind of getting back into it after being destroyed by England in Sri Lanka. We all sort of wrote them off saying, oh, structural issues, the board, etc. And 1 or 2 test matches don't change all of that. There are some fundamental issues to the core, but I'm really excited to see them doing well. DJ, let me ask you really quickly about the fact that we're at the end of day 2 and we're either 130 runs or 8 wickets away from a result. So it'll be done by tea probably on day 3 either way. So it's a 2.5 day test match. India constantly gets a lot of criticism for the short test matches or the pitches, or the opposite, that the pitches are so flat that they go to 5 days with no result. Is it about time? We've been talking about pitches in Test cricket for quite a while now. Is it about time we look a little bit deeper and more broad about the role of the pitch in the Test match?
Yeah, if you remember, the first set of criticism that came for Indian pitches was when we beat South Africa 3-0, and it was said, these games have only lasted 3.5 days, and pitches spin way too much, they're turning tracks, and they dust bowls and this and that and all of that stuff. But I mean, the last few games South Africa have played, they haven't really gone. I mean, I can't remember the last game that went into 5 days in South Africa. They produced these seeming wickets, where today I think they lost 18 wickets in a day. And I mean, that's incredible. And if you lost 18 wickets in a day in the subcontinent, that pitch would be rated poor immediately. Now, there's an argument to be had. I think Pommy and Mikey was speaking on air, and they were saying that the batsmanship has been really poor, and the shots played and the shot selection has been bad. But I mean, the pitches have got to have something to do with it. If South Africa have been losing wickets, Pakistan, when they were here, lost wickets. Sri Lanka have been bowled out for not very many runs, apart from that absurd magical innings that Kushal Pereira played. So I think somebody needs to take a look at South African wickets and see whether these are actually good sporting wickets for Test cricket. Even the wickets in England, the games were going to the 4th day, at the very least, towards the end of the 4th day. The Test match we won in Trent Bridge went into the 5th day. The Australian games went into the 5th day. I can't see why Indian pitches get so much criticism, where South African pitches are supposed to be sporting and assisting the seamers, and that makes for exciting cricket with the ball flying through and all of that stuff. There seems to be a double standard at play here. And that actually really annoys me, that if a game gets over before lunch or before tea on day 3, no one actually questions it because it's not being played in the subcontinent.
Yeah, I think totally fair. So let's wait and watch what happens. I would still say 8 wickets needed by the South Africans versus 137 runs. Most other bowling lineups, you'd go with Varun's direction and say Sri Lanka has a shot. But I think when you're playing against Steyn, Rabada, Olivier, and Maharaj, anything is possible. So it's going to be a great day 3 and final day of the Test match. With that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back for the second half of our show. Welcome back to the second half of episode 48 of the Edges and Sledges podcast. During the break, you'll be happy to learn we had a long discussion about whether or not this is the finest set of names ever by a group of global wicketkeepers. And of course, we mentioned Quinton de Kock earlier. His opposing keeper, the Sri Lankan player, is Niroshan Dickwella. India is now going to have a player named Pant, or Pant, however you want to pronounce it. Joss Butler on the other end. Guys, did I miss any, or is it's still a pretty exciting time for the names of wicketkeepers?
Payne.
I got Payne. Payne's a pretty good one.
T-Payne.
Yeah, so anyway, good mature discussion as always. Let's keep moving on and talk a little bit about the other series that's going on in the world of cricket, and that is England's tour of the West Indies. So the second ODI is on right now, but the first ODI was pretty eye-opening, I'd say. So I'm going to quickly summarize what happened, and then I'm going to ask you guys for some thoughts. But West Indies batted first, put on 360 for 8. So at the end of the day, a pretty good score that you'd be pretty proud of. But Chris Gayle was at 19 of 45 balls before he finally accelerated, ended at 135. He called it probably his finest ODI innings ever. Pretty good, decent contributions. Darren Bravo made 40, Shea Hope made 64. They ended at 360. But then this English side came down and chased it and made the whole thing look easy. I mean, Jason Roy hit 123. Joe Root picked up a century. And then between Morgan, Bairstow, and Stokes, everybody chipped in. And, you had Stokes and Butler not out, Moeen Ali and Chris Woakes still to come. And they chased down 360 with more than an over to spare and really made it look easy. So we've been talking about how England's probably the favorite for the World Cup. And I think they just cemented that reputation a little bit. But let me first ask you, Varun, let's talk about this England chasing side. I mean, is Root going into the dressing room when they chase now, and even if there's 420 runs on the board, he's going to say, guys, we can do this, we can chase anything?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of teams need to look at this England lineup and kind of firstly be a little bit scared, but secondly learn that you can win matches if you just have the right batting depth. And I'm a firm believer of this. So even when West Indies scored 364, you could say the bowling was bad, you could say the pitch was bad. But at the end of the day, to chase 364 on a batting wicket is not easy. And I think all of us who Either three of us or everyone who's listening to the podcast has seen enough cricket to know that. So I think full kudos to them. I think it's pretty scary that Jason Roy sometimes is not even in the playing 11 and he can come out and give a start like that. Joe Root then becomes the anchor. Morgan has the freedom to bat however he wants. And yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, I guess the lesson I would take from this is for India, they need to kind of think about who is going to bat at number 5, 6, 7, and 8 for them to be able to make this kind of a chase. Because yes, you are going to have that one game where Kuldeep and Chahal or Bhuvi and Pandya or even a Bumrah go for runs. So in that situation, you have to be ready. And I think we've talked about this a lot. Like, again, I'm saying, I don't think I'm coming back to my old point about solving for the 15 for 3. I think that's a different discussion. I think here, what is the most scary thing for me is, do all of us believe that if India is 200 for 3 in the 35th over or 32nd over, do you think with our current lineup we can chase 364? Because 200 for 3 is a pretty good total. And I don't know, Ashwin, DJ, do you guys currently believe we can do that at 200 for 3?
I think it depends on who you have coming in at 5, 6, 7, right? I might say on a good day, Karthik and Pandya coming in at 5 and 6, maybe with Jadhav being the third to fill that slot, can do it, but not every day, right? Not to the level you'd back the English side. But DJ, what do you think?
I think you'd need at least one of the top 3 to still be in to be able to chase that. You need a Kohli or a Rohit or a Shikhar to score big 100, a 150 or so.
Yeah, absolutely, DJ. I agree with you. And Ashwin, I really don't see Kedar, Hardik or Dinesh Karthik making 164 runs in 15 overs. I can see them making 50 runs in 6 overs or 5 overs. But 164 is a different, and I guess and it's an arbitrary question from my side. It's not like I've done research to say 200 for 3, but I'm just saying that most teams 200 for 3, you would back them. I actually wouldn't back the Indian team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, if your three wickets that fell are Dhawan, Rohit, and Kohli, then you're probably right. I think as long as one of them sticks around, then your lower can do the rest.
Yeah, there was a point where we were chasing 350 for fun against Australia in a particular one-day series, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. And the people who would score the runs then were basically Kohli, Rohit, or Kohli and Shikhar. And that's when we were getting the 350s and managing to chase those scores down. So I don't actually see, as you said, Kedar or Karthik or Pant or Pandya actually coming in and scoring those big runs that you need in those circumstances, really. And even this game, the big runs came from the top 3. Jason Roy got 100 and Joe Root got 100, right? And Joe Root comes into bat at number 3 and Roy opens the batting. Incidentally, I must apologize to Jason Roy fans when I tweeted his net session and called it the Little League version of Virat Kohli, and the next day he gets that 123 of 85 balls. So I'm glad to know that tweet aged well.
Again, the beauty of Twitter and podcasting is that everything stays on the record. So next time Jason Roy fails, which he inevitably will, you can retweet that. So we'll be good. Let me ask you guys, Varun, let me start with you first. Gayle talked a little bit about his being his best innings ever, and there was a lot of conversation about how, well, when you're constructing an innings, how you start doesn't matter, it's how you finish. And arguably that's true. I mean, we've seen the Rohit Sharma innings where he started slow and ended up with a strike rate of 130, 140. For Gayle to have started at 19 off 45 balls, does the fact that he ended up with 135 at better than a run a ball, does that offset the fact that early on in the first kind of 10 overs, he put a lot of pressure on his partners, and John Campbell got out hitting a big shot because Gayle on the other end was not able to score runs. So how do you think about the role of keeping strike rate all through like a Kohli does versus being okay staying slow up front as long as you can hit the big sixes later like a Gayle or Rohit do?
Yeah, so my view on this is I personally don't see anything wrong with Gayle's batting. I think Rohit Sharma bats in a similar format. Maybe he bats slightly quicker than Gayle did in the first innings. But, I mean, you really can't fault a team for scoring 360. I really can't get it. I know a few people have said the pitch was so bad, it should have been a 390 pitch. I mean, come on, guys. Again, like I said, we watched enough cricket to know 360 is good. So I think where the problem comes in with Gayle is, and I'll just take Gayle versus Rohit, for example. Both are openers, both start slow. Whichever team Gayle plays for, whether it could be the IPL team or West Indies, I think the rest of the batsmen's mindset is just to play around Gayle. And I think that's where the match gets lost. It's not so much about Gayle's strike rate. I think the difference is when a Rohit starts off slow, you've got enough match winners surrounding him at number 2, number 3, probably a little bit lower down the order as well. So to me, that's the biggest difference. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's the mental thought process of a team that revolves around one player.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think it was interesting because Gayle was just brought back in. He's 39 years old. Lots of people thought it was the wrong call, and obviously he then made a century in his first match back. So let's see. I mean, as at the time of us recording this, it's midway through the first innings of the second ODI, and Gayle's still there at 42 or 48. So he started a lot stronger, but good to see him being consistent. I think it's good for the sport, and he's already said he'll bow out after the World Cup. So let's see how that goes. DJ, let me ask you one final question on England versus West Indies. I have to tell you, as I was following the match on CricBuzz and on Twitter and seeing what was going on, so the West Indies side made 360, like we said, but there were 23 sixes in that innings, and they didn't even hit that many fours. Are we getting to the point where is a 360-run match that gets chased down easily, is that exciting, or is it now kind of to the point where it's almost more boring? Like, would people like us rather watch a South Africa-Sri Lanka match where they're chasing 137 in the fourth innings than watch 8 hours of just nonstop six hitting? And has T20 kind of ruined those big ODIs for us? Your thoughts on that?
It's quite a tricky question because I suppose there's a market for everything, right? Given how many people watch cricket. But personally, I found the England-West Indies game a bit dull after a certain point. I mean, a little bit of interest was added to it because of Gayle's return and his slow start, and then he just took off and people added to the sixes. But I mean, I've always found low-scoring games more interesting, with the aberration being something like a 434 where both teams go completely nuts and you have a great game. But for that to become the norm, and I mean, even in the break, right, Chris Gayle came out and said most teams would be pretty happy with 364. I mean, it just shows you how much the game has changed. Most teams would have been pretty happy with 300 15 years ago, right? Now 350 has become the new 300, where you may or may not win almost. And I mean, 364 being chased down is ridiculous. There's an element of sameness to it, and the ease with which England won. I mean, they just cruised the chase, 364 without even breaking a sweat almost. It was frankly a bit soul destroying if you like watching a contest between the ball and the bat.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I felt. And so it's going to be interesting to see through this World Cup. I mean, ODIs still have a really important place in the sport, but it's going to be interesting to see how, as T20 grows and people are more and more excited by these really close test matches, what is the role that the high 300s, low 400 matches play in ODIs. So with that, I'll do a quick recap of what's going on with the India versus England women's series. So the England women are touring India. They played their first match out of 3 ODIs they're playing in Mumbai, and then they move on to Guwahati to play 3 T20s. So the first match that happened last night in my time zone ended pretty well for the Indian women. They scored 202 in 49 overs, so it was a pretty tough pitch to bat on. Yet again, I think she's still 18-year-old opener Jemimah Rodriguez hit a beautiful 48, and then Mithali came on after a mini collapse and stabilized the ship a little. And then after getting 202, thanks to some good early bowling and then cleaning up the tail by Ekta Bisht, England were dismissed for 136. So pretty good, a 66-run victory to start the ODI series. The English women are probably the strongest women's ODI side at the moment, maybe barring Australia. So a good victory. It'll be interesting to watch how the next 2 ODIs go and how they go with the T20s. But I think overall, really great to see the Indian women continuing their form from the last 6 months or so.
And Harman is out, right, with an injury as well. So that's pretty impressive, actually, for India to have won without her.
Yeah, that's correct. Harman is out. They slotted in a player who I'm not too familiar with. Her name's Harleen Deol. She bats at 5. But I mean, really, Harman, to be honest, Harman didn't have a great last series either. It was all about the opening pair of Jemimah and Smriti with the bat and then the spinners. And I think they continue to do a great job. So yeah, but it'll be interesting to see now as we think about it. I mean, there's no doubt that the Indian women's side has a really strong kind of first 6 to 8 players and can make up a good 11. But now when you have injuries like Harman's just had, you'll see a real test of the batting depth or the depth of the squad in general. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, final topic before we do our listener quiz wrap up. There's been quite a bit of talk from the world of domestic cricket. So the Syed Mushtaq Ali T20 trophy is on. And so while we're all focused on all the international cricket, Shreyas Iyer, who I have to add is the captain of the Delhi Daredevils for this year, which I'm very excited about.
Delhi Capitals.
I'm sorry, Delhi Capitals.
Dude.
Good correction. It'll take me a while to do that. I've been saying Delhi Daredevils for 11 years now.
The DCs, not the double Ds.
See, the DCs is still Deccan Chargers for me. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Iyer came out when the score was just 22 and both the openers had been dismissed. And he hit 147 runs off just 55 balls. It's the highest T20 individual score by an Indian batsman. It was the highest T20, the third highest T20 total that was scored that Mumbai ended up scoring. And they won the match by 158 runs or so. So, Varun, let me start with you. Is this an exciting time for the Delhi Capitals and for Iyer in general as a cricketer who's kind of been sidelined by the Indian side?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I was reading a stat that said basically Pant and Iyer have the two highest T20 scores. I think Pant last year 128 in the IPL and Iyer now, and both are pretty much our middle order, number 3, 4. So I think it's exciting. I've already started all the trash talk with my friends about how this is Delhi's year. I think the 1 month before the IPL is the only time I get to kind of at least have some hope, because March 23rd onward it suddenly becomes reality. But I mean, I have to put it on record, like the last 11 years, that I am feeling really good about this year's IPL chance for Delhi.
And I think in the lead up in the next month or so, we'll do more details about the teams. But I mean, we're obviously going to be a little biased as all three of us being Delhi fans. But something tells me that Dhawan and Munro opening, Prithvi Shaw 1 down, Iyer 2 down, Pant and Vihari playing at 5 and 6. It can be a rock solid batting order. So let's hope it comes good for us this year.
Can you just imagine Shikhar doing the thigh slap and the mustache twirl in a Delhi crowd during an IPL game?
The crowd is going to go insane. Yeah. The crowd will go insane. So,
man, I can just visualize Shikhar picking up Prithvi and slapping his thigh with Prithvi Shaw. I'm just visualizing that right now.
And Keema Pao just hanging out in the background, is it?
Wow, dude, what a name.
Just to be clear for our listeners, his name is Keemo Paul. He's a West Indian cricketer, but we like to affectionately call him Keema Pao.
Is he the guy that did the Mankad in that Under-19 World Cup?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe.
That's a major killer instinct if he is that guy, dude. Then we need him. He'll do anything to win.
Yeah, he is, I think. I'm just looking it up quickly.
He did.
That is some good killer instinct, man. Because I remember seeing that guy, right? Like, he just Mankaded him for the last wicket and it was done.
It's going to be good. And so definitely over the next few weeks, we'll go through some previews of the sides, but I think Delhi's looking pretty solid. Probably short one fast bowler, if you will, but we'll come back to that and see how that goes. All right, gents, as before we wrap up this week's show, we want to just give the answer to this week's listener quiz. So as you know, we started posting a listener quiz in the middle of the week. And this week's question was a little bit trickier. It was, which Indian spinner has the highest proportion of stumpings in their total ODI career wicket? And we filtered out for a minimum of 50 ODI career wickets. So we got a lot of guesses in. We got a guess of Tendulkar. We got a guess of Yuzvendra Chahal. We got a guess of Bhaji. And then we kind of decided, okay, we're going to give a little bit of a hint and say it's a left-arm spinner that's retired. And so then we got guesses of Bishan Singh Bedi. We got Murali Karthik. I was surprised nobody guessed Sunil Joshi, but that's not correct either. But ultimately, the correct answer is the current Indian men's coach. It's Ravi Shastri, with just over 17% of his dismissals as stumped. He's got the highest proportion of his dismissals as stumped of all Indian players. So let's just go through really quickly. We had some correct answers. We had at Mithran Mithu, we had K. Pathak, Nikhil Day, Arindam Saha, and Shantanu give us the correct answers. And some good shout outs by Prakhar, Kapil MSD4, Simply Paru, Saurabh Jain, and two Pandyas, who didn't quite get it, but we appreciate them attempting all the same. And also, we had Karthik Jayaraman and Vignesh with some attempts, but weren't able to get it right this week. So thanks for engaging with us as always. We enjoy coming up with tough questions. We enjoy seeing what the answers are, and we'll do another question next week with the answer to be released during the show.
And just to be clear, Varun and I would have never got that right. So whoever's got it right, well done to you guys, man. It was really hard.
The reason we're doing it for our listeners now is because you guys got so many wrong during our quiz on the show. So we decided let's test some different people.
Are you getting your own back for us kicking you off the podcast last week?
Obviously. And you not only did you kick me off, you even gave me hell for it on the show. So thanks for that. Anyway, thank you to everybody who tuned in for this week's show. As always, like, share, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can get in touch with us at One Tip One Hand on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or shoot us an email, contact@onetiponehand.com. We love making this show. We love to hear from you. We love getting input and feedback. So send those questions and comments in. We will be back next week with another episode. So we'll talk to you then. Thanks very much.